Psychology says that emotional manipulation is one of the most insidious forms of psychological abuse because it masquerades as love. If you've ever felt confused, exhausted, or like you're losing your mind in a relationship, you are not alone, and it is not your fault. Recognizing the hidden architecture of manipulation is the first step to reclaiming your psychological freedom. 1. Gaslighting. Narcissists will systematically deny conversations that definitely happened. Tell you you're too sensitive for having a valid emotional reaction and twist your words to make you sound irrational. They might hide your keys and then blame you for being forgetful, all to make you question your own mind. Psychology calls this classic form of psychological manipulation gaslighting. Gaslighting works because your brain is wired to trust its own perception of reality. When someone you trust relentlessly attacks that perception, it creates profound cognitive dissonance, forcing your mind to doubt itself to resolve the conflict. What feels like a simple misunderstanding is actually a calculated attack on your sanity, designed to make you dependent on their version of reality. 2. Love bombing. Narcissists will overwhelm you at the beginning with constant praise, excessive gifts, and declarations of being soulmates after only a few weeks. They mirror your interests, dreams, and insecurities perfectly, making you feel seen and understood like never before. Psychology calls this tactic love bombing. This initial storm of affection overwhelms your brain's dopamine system, creating a powerful sense of euphoria and psychological dependency, similar to the initial high of an addictive substance. What appears as a whirlwind romance is actually the first stage of the abuse cycle, a meticulously crafted illusion to lower your defenses and hook you into a trauma bond. 3. Narcissistic supply. Narcissists constantly seek admiration, compliments, and attention from others to prop up their fragile ego. They will provoke arguments just to get an emotional reaction, brag excessively about their accomplishments, and demand constant validation for their actions, no matter how small. Psychology calls this constant need for external validation narcissistic supply. This isn't about connection. It's about using other people as fuel. Their brain lacks a stable, internal sense of self-worth, so they become dependent on external sources to regulate their emotions and feel powerful. What feels like you giving them emotional support is actually you being used as an object to feed their ego and stabilize their unstable sense of self. For triangulation, narcissists will intentionally introduce a third person into your dynamic to create jealousy and insecurity. They might constantly praise their ex, tell you about a coworker who is so into them, or create rivalries between you and their friends or family, making you feel like you must compete for their affection. Psychology calls this manipulation tactic triangulation. This works by activating your brain's primal fear of abandonment and social exclusion, triggering anxiety and forcing you to focus all your energy on winning back the narcissist's favor. What seems like a casual comment about another person is actually a calculated psychological manipulation designed to control you through insecurity and fear. 5. Hoovering. Just when you've decided to leave or have started to pull away, the narcissist will suddenly reappear, attempting to suck you back into the relationship. They might send a text saying, "I miss you," show up at your door with an apology, or suddenly start liking all your social media posts after a long silence, promising that they've changed. Psychology calls this tactic hoovering, named after the vacuum cleaner. Hoovering exploits the trauma bond you've formed. Your brain remembers the initial high of the love-bombing phase and craves that dopamine release again, making you vulnerable to their false promises. They're not missing you. They're missing the control they had over you and the narcissistic supply you provided. 6. Devaluation. After the initial love-bombing phase, narcissists will suddenly and drastically shift their behavior. The constant praise turns into relentless criticism, affection is replaced with coldness, and everything you do is suddenly wrong. They may belittle your achievements, mock your interests, or insult you in subtle ways that leave you feeling small and confused. Psychology calls this the devaluation stage. This sudden withdrawal of positive reinforcement acts as a psychological punishment, creating deep confusion and a desperate desire to get back to the good old days of the love-bombing phase. What feels like you've done something wrong is actually a deliberate strategy to break. Don Narcissists contraction. Narcissists will accuse you of the very behaviors they themselves are engaging in. If they are cheating, they will accuse you of being unfaithful. If they are lying, they will call you a liar. If they are manipulating, they will claim you are the one playing mind games. Psychology calls this defense mechanism projection. By offloading their own negative traits and actions onto you, they avoid taking any responsibility and preserve their grandiose self-image. It's a psychological smokescreen that disorients you, puts you on the defensive, and distracts you from their actual behavior. They're not expressing a genuine concern. They're showing you a mirror of their own character. 8. The silent treatment. Narcissists will punish you by withdrawing all communication and affection. Sometimes for days or even weeks, often for a minor perceived slight. They will ignore your texts, refuse to speak to you in person, and act as if you don't exist, leaving you in a state of extreme anxiety and desperation to resolve the problem. Psychology recognizes this as a form of emotional abuse known as the silent treatment. This tactic activates the same pain centers in your brain as physical injury. The social exclusion triggers a primal fear of abandonment, making it an incredibly potent tool for punishment and psychological control. What feels like them needing space is actually calculated manipulation, a passive-aggressive way to punish you and assert their dominance. 9. Intermittent reinforcement. Narcissists will mix periods of abuse and devaluation with sudden, unpredictable bursts of affection and love bombing. This cycle of good and bad days keeps you in a constant state of uncertainty, always hoping for the next reward and desperately trying to figure out how to earn it. Psychology calls this pattern intermittent reinforcement. By alternating punishment and unpredictable rewards, they activate addiction psychology within your brain. This pattern is scientifically proven to be the most powerful way to create a compulsive, addictive bond, which is why it's so difficult to leave. What feels like a complicated, passionate relationship is actually the mechanics of a slot machine, designed to create a trauma bond and keep you addicted to the cycle. These aren't random behaviors or relationship rough patches. Psychology shows they are a calculated playbook, of manipulation tactics designed to dismantle your sense of self and establish psychological control. Recognizing these patterns is not about blame, it is about awareness. It is the first and most critical step to protecting your psychological health, validating your experience, and reclaiming your freedom. If you've recognized these manipulation tactics in your life or want to protect yourself from psychological abuse, subscribe because the next video reveals how to recover from narcissistic manipulation and rebuild your mental health.